So yesterday, people asked me a question about my live stream, which was, how do you know the sign of the cross is apostolic tradition? Because I was quoting St. Basil, where he says that this was handed on from the apostles. This is one of the most popular examples is the sign of the cross. So I gave him an answer today, but I'm going to get that to you at the end of the video. First, I want to look at a video from the Reformed pastor Doug Wilson, where he's asked the question: should Protestants make the sign of the cross? And I found it that his answer was quite interesting. So I'm going to share that with you and then offer a few thoughts about his response and then dig into some of the fathers on this very question.
What do you think of Protestants who cross themselves when they pray or take a test?
Well, I'll put it this way: that if someone said, "Is it lawful or appropriate for Protestants to cross themselves?" I'd say, yeah, it's lawful, but it's not appropriate at all.
Okay, he says it's lawful for Protestants to make it, but they shouldn't do that at all. I think there's going to be some disappointed Lutherans and Anglicans out there, many or some, who make the sign of the cross because, well, first of all, it's we've been doing it for 2,000 years. Of course, I'm an Orthodox Christian, and we make the sign of the cross. And again, it's just widespread global and it's apostolic ancient tradition. But he thinks it's inappropriate for Christians to do it, which is very odd. It's the sign of what Christians are. It's our very sort of like the American flag to an American would be, the sign of the cross to a Christian, but significantly more so.
Why is that?
Okay. Well, first, on the lawfulness, John Calvin recognized that it was a very early Christian practice, goes back as early as the 1st century, perhaps. So in terms of the lawfulness, it's just like having a fish bumper sticker with a fish thing on it.
Okay, so Doug Wilson admits he thinks that the sign of the cross may go back even to the 1st century. Well, there we go.
On your car. That's an ancient Christian symbol, and crossing yourself is an ancient Christian practice. So that takes care of the lawfulness. God didn't tell us not to do it. So it's lawful. But the reason I would say it's inappropriate or unwise for Protestants to do it is that it is telegraphing either confusion or transition. Okay, because if I'm watching television and I see the third baseman get up to bat and he crosses himself, what do I think? Well, I think Italian Roman Catholic third baseman. Right. So I'm telling somebody something about myself. Now, if the guy is getting up to bat.
Okay, so he thinks that if someone makes the sign of the cross, that you're telling the world that you're a Roman Catholic. I mean, we just had the Olympics last summer, and or summer before that, and there was a tennis player who made the sign of the cross, but he's Orthodox, so I'm not really sure where he's coming from. And again, there's been plenty of cases that other people want to make the sign of the cross. So again, it's kind of odd advice that he views this as from the 1st century, but inappropriate for a Christian. I don't know.
Just told America that he's a Roman Catholic third baseman, and he's a Southern Baptist with security issues. Right? He's just made a statement that
would the same guy be comfortable Tebowing?
Right.
Because that wouldn't be cool.
That would not be cool at all. And so basically, crossing yourself is not just it's not just something you do. Let's say a Protestant is, for whatever reason, whenever he's alone and he prays and he crosses himself and nobody in the world knows that he does, and it's just something he does. And that doesn't get me worked up at all unless it's an identity issue. Right, but when you're doing it in public, it's language. You're saying something not only to God, but
you are saying something. You're saying something very profound. It's really the most powerful prayer you can do. I mean, we have profound prayers. The sign of the cross is a very profound, powerful prayer. The Jesus prayer is a very profound prayer. I'm just baffled why he would say that you shouldn't do it.
You're saying something to everybody who's around, and whenever you're saying something, you should say, what am I saying? Do I agree with it? Why am I saying it? Is it true? Right. So the illustration I often use is if there are 12 clowns in a circus ring, you jump down there and start quoting Shakespeare. St. Crispin's Day speech. To the audience, you're just the 13th clown. You don't set you don't have the gravitas to jump down there and quote the speech in such a way as to make the circus not a circus.
Right. So, I mean, I think he's basically saying it would be just, if you're in Reformed circles where we don't make the sign of the cross and you're making it around us, then you're violating the Reformed liturgy. Perhaps that's really what his point is. But that shows a deficiency right there. That if your liturgy has eliminated the sign of the cross, maybe there's already something going on there that isn't quite good. And I want to address the gentleman who asked me a question. How do you know this is apostolic tradition? How do we even know the apostles made the sign of the cross? Well, first of all, I was giving this as an example of oral tradition, unwritten tradition that was handed on. That's how St. Basil addresses it. Let me go ahead and pull up St. Basil's quote for you, and then we'll talk about a couple of the other fathers. But you can find the sign of the cross talked about all over the place. But St. Basil, this is the quote that I brought up yesterday, and this is what he was asking about. Of the beliefs and practices, whether generally accepted or publicly enjoyed, which are preserved in the church, some we possess derived from written teaching, others we have received delivered to us in a mystery by the tradition of the apostles. And both of these in relation to true religion have the same force. And then he goes on, he says, take the first and most general example, who has taught us in writing to sign with the sign of the cross, those who have trusted in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. So he's giving this an example as an unwritten tradition, like that which is handed on. That's what the word tradition means. You can use the word transmission if you prefer, that which the apostles transmitted. But they shared that with us. And so that's the question that he was having. How do we know? And so and then I kind of responded with a few things, and he was like, well, how do you know that I'm just supposed to take your word? I'm like, well, you're not really supposed to take my word. And that's when I thought, oh, he needs to think about this more from a historical standpoint. This isn't just something random. Take Tertullian's words. I think this is important because in 200 AD, he's already calling the sign of the cross an ancient tradition or custom. Ancient. This is 200 AD. This is what he writes. And how long shall we draw the saw to and fro through this line when we have an ancient practice which by anticipation has made for us the state of the question? If no passage of Scripture has prescribed it, surely custom, which will without a doubt flow from tradition, has confirmed it. For how can anything come to us except as it first has been handed on? And then he goes on and starts talking about the sign of the cross. And he's like, at every forward step and movement, at every going in and out, when we put on our clothes and shoes, when we bathe, when we sit at the table, when we light the lamps on couch, on seat, and in all ordinary actions of daily life, we trace upon the forehead the sign. Okay? And so he calls it ancient tradition, the sign of the cross. St. John Chrysostom talks about the sign of the cross as well. As well as St. Cyril of Jerusalem. He writes, since not merely by the fingers ought one to engrave it, but before this by the purpose of the heart, which much faith. So, of course, we're not just doing some empty ritual, but rather the fingers are also praying with the heart, with great faith. And so you can find the sign of the cross being made from Spain to India to Rome to Greece to Egypt. It's all over the place. And it's really the sign of us Christians. Like it's a Christian sign. So that's where I was like, this is probably, for me, it's like, it's very much like the Nicene Creed, but significantly older. Like you should have no problem with the Nicene Creed. That's why it was a bit strange when Southern Baptists didn't want to adopt it to, be their official creed or recite it. But the Nicene Creed should be accepted by all Christians. Well, the sign of the cross, which is even like more ancient and from the beginning, this should be accepted by all Christians. I just don't see where Doug is coming from. And I think there's just good evidence to show that this was global, part of all of the ancient liturgies. It could have been done in just a little bit of different ways. Some people think it may have initially been done on the forehead initially and then moved to the fingers to the body. So there's a lot of theories about how the customs like changed or developed, but everybody's pretty much on the same page. This is very ancient, very, when you've got somebody like Tertullian in 200 AD calling it an ancient custom, then it's probably an ancient custom. And so it's a treasure, the sign of the cross. And so I hope that you make it throughout the day. We are told by Tertullian, we are told by many, like St. Cyril of Jerusalem talks about just, making it throughout the day before we do everything. It's sort of like, in some sense, sanctifying that which we are about to do. So make the sign of the cross before you wash the dishes tonight. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. Real quick, I am going to be interviewing Father Stephen DeYoung on his new book about the devil, the Basil book, a biography of the devil. So that's going to be a really fun upcoming interview. Also, I'm going to be interviewing Christopher Lockwood. He's got an upcoming course through St. Athanasius College on types and symbols in the Bible, a mystical commentary, a mystical Bible commentary. And I've been digging into this book and really, really loving it. So stay tuned for this interview next week and one coming down the road with Father Stephen DeYoung. So a lot of cool interviews coming up, a lot of rich resources. I love getting to review very good, rich books. Not only does it bless my life, but I hope it's also a blessing to you to be able to do some of these reviews and interviews. So guys, thanks for joining in, and we'll see y'all next